Hi, everybody. Hello. Thank you for coming along and welcome to today's virtual event, The Future of Financial Planning, Technology, AI, and the Changing Shape of Advice. I'm Ben from Melo, and I will be your host for today. Now, when firms think about the future, the conversation often quickly moves to tools. Which system to buy, which AI feature to switch on, which platform everyone seems to be talking about. But the better place to start is often with the firm itself. Now, what does a business need to look like over the next 5 to 10 years? That is a question we'll be attempting to answer today. Although, as we have all found out over the last kind of 10 years or so, things tend to move a lot differently than what we anticipate. But we will try and put our forward-thinking hats on and work out what's going to happen next. So today we're going to have a look at 4 areas. The next 5 to 10 years of advice, we're going to talk about data security, which is often overlooked when it comes to certainly AI. We're going to talk about the impact that AI may have on advice itself, and also why keeping the human at the centre is still the core of long-term value. Now, I'm delighted today to be joined by Sherry-Ann Baxter-Blythe, Head of Exits at Melo, who brings M&A and business transfer point of view to the session. And we're also joined by Jonathan Hunter and Sam Agarwal from Obsidian. Now, if you've not heard of Obsidian, they are currently building and will soon be launching an all-in-one platform for financial advisors covering practice management, custody, and execution all in one place. So they are very much our tech gurus for today's session. Quick bit of housekeeping. We are recording today's session, and we'll share the recording with you afterwards. If anyone can't make it, please feel free to send on the recording to them, as I'm sure that they'll be interested in some of the things that we are covering. We are happy to take questions today, so there is a Q&A feature available in Zoom. Drop your questions in there, and I will make sure they are fired into the right person as we go through. And as a reminder, every firm is different. We'll be sharing principles, ideas, and thoughts today, but this is not a one-size-fits-all blueprint for the future. If you want to know specifically anything about your firm, please do get in touch with us afterwards, and we will be happy to chat specifically about your business. So without further ado, let's get started. And I would like to, first off, throw in the grenade question that everyone gets asked in an AI webinar. Sam, Jonathan, are we all going to get replaced by AI in the next 10 years?
No. Is the summary there? No. The way we kind of think about AI is it is an enhancement to the process that already exists for financial advisors. So our job as an AI technology provider is to enhance and assist with workflows as opposed to replacing advisors. We think that the jobs that the advisors are doing are critical and they cannot be replaced by AI. The AI cannot replace the human element of delivering advice, understanding, client circumstances, understanding and building that relationship with clients. You can't do that in AI. And there's historical examples of this as well. So, there was a massive shift in the UK a few years ago around kind of robo-advisors. So we saw companies like Scalable Capital enter the space. They didn't really do so well. And now Scalable Capital doesn't actually operate in the UK anymore. So the model has been shown historically to not work when you do try and replace advisors with AI or robos, etc. So our aim is to empower the advisors to essentially assist with their workflows, make them more efficient, do more, as opposed to replace advisors.
Yeah. But I think also on the flip side of that, AI generally is impacting all industries. And we don't think that financial advice is going to be immutable to it. So it's just a matter of also accepting the change, which will be inevitable. And I think every person across all industries in their job can see AI playing a bigger role. And that's what we're trying to bring to financial advice.
So I think good answer. It's the same answer that most tech providers have provided so far. Has said, don't worry, you guys will all be fine. We're just here to help. With the robo side of things, I remember when everyone was dead nervous about robo advice coming to the fore, and from my understanding of the situation, and I'd be great to kind of get your view on it, was that there was not a massive issue attracting people into the platforms. However, it was when someone had to press go, that's when they fell out of the loop because they wanted the kind of confirmation from a human that it was okay to proceed. The thing that's in the back of my mind is that AI is getting so good now that it can be quite difficult to tell you're not talking to a human. So actually, if you think you're talking to a human, is that okay? Is that enough to get someone to kind of push the button and go forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an interesting point that you raise. So, let's take an example, right? Which is that you get an investment recommended to you by an AI engine. In this case, it is a AI advisor that is advising the specific client. Well, it makes a recommendation. The investment doesn't do too well. The response you're going to get from the AI is, I apologize for what's happened. Here's how we can rectify the situation without thinking about the full ramifications that it may entail for this client. It cannot go through and understand the emotional aspects of financial advice. Yes, of course, from a logical perspective, it will say, based on the data that I had at hand at that moment in time, I recommended this investment and I thought this investment was going to work out really well for you. But all it's going to do is give you an apology and then 3 bullet points on how it can improve going forward. It's not what you want to hear as a client.
Yeah. And I think also the role of advisors will shift slightly, right? I think a lot of what historically an advisor would do, which a lot of it includes a lot of things relating to administration, for instance, a lot of paper filling, form following up with different platform providers and pension transfers, all these kind of stuff will be drastically sped up, right? Or in some cases replaced. And on the flip side, also, a lot of the activities relating to actually selecting funds, for instance, or finding tax optimization, a lot of it, information is becoming so readily accessible through AI. A lot of that will be helped or in some cases replaced. So where does that leave the role of the advisor, really focusing on the relationship? And we hear this talked on and on about, where an advisor is not necessarily just someone which will tell you what to do with your money, but also will help you come to that decision, figuring out what your requirements are, what your goals are, and acting more as a coach in a lot of different ways rather than just a pure robot suggesting what you should invest in.
Yeah, I completely agree with what John said there. And I think the other bit is that, to expand on what he said there, which is advisors shouldn't have to waste time doing a lot of admin and doing a lot of form filling and, document processing, etc. That takes away from their skill set, which is maintaining those client relationships, spending more time with clients. So if we can assist in the middle office and the back office, then they do have more time to spend with clients, and that is better for the relationship across the board.
Yeah, and also as the end client, right, you're not paying for your advisor to fill out forms. And also that's not really visible to the end clients. They're paying for time with the advisors realistically. So focus on what the advisors are getting paid for and let the rest be helped with technology.
So thank you, guys. Sherry Ann, you and I have been in and around advice for quite some time now. We've seen a load of things shift. If I look back over the last kind of 10 or 15 years, when I started out, everyone had paper files. There was
Yeah.
no access to digital portals. There was none of that kind of stuff going down. It was all very much the client came into the office or you went and sat in their front room and it was all kind of done personally together. Risk profiles were, do you think you're top, middle or bottom, as opposed to the more sophisticated ways we've got of doing them now. And technology's come more and more to the forefront, and I think changed quite significantly how financial advice is delivered. But from your perspective, how do you see the financial advice market of the next kind of 10 years looking? What would an advice practice look like in 10 years' time?
Yeah, fantastic question.
Oh, sorry, Sam. That one's to Sherry Ann. I'll bring you in shortly.
Definitely want to hear your views on that as well.
Perfect.
But I think this is all about time and how people are spending their time and how technology can divert that time into different channels. And the way that I see it, and Jonathan's already touched upon the element of relationship, the skills that advisors are going to have to need to hone moving forward are definitely EQ skills and making sure that they can generate more of a stronger bond with clients, because there is going to be this opportunity to learn more and educate yourself at a much better level online. So gone are the days, I think, where you're relying on a client who doesn't really know that much. You're going to have to educate them, and the value is in that. It's going to be more in, they're going to come to you and be more educated, maybe wrongly educated, but they're going to know more. And you're going to have to spend more time with them, guiding them along their financial planning journey. And then that frees up more time for you to do other things. So we know we have a shortage in the market of young advisors coming up through the profession. There would be more time to train people. Power planners are going to be doing less admin, so they're going to have more face-to-face client time, which means we can generate more advisors perhaps from that power planner pool. So for me, I really don't like this question around will it risk our jobs. We need to kind of forget about that as a risk, and we need to focus on the opportunity that we have ahead of us to become better as a profession, to innovate our charging model, to innovate how clients are investing, and to have a look at how they're actually interacting with technology and with their face-to-face advisor on a human basis across that sort of hybrid spectrum.
Thanks, Sherry. And sorry, Sam, to bring you back in on that then, what if you kind of get your crystal ball out, what does an advice kind of practice and advice journey look like in 10 years' time for you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to talk about this through the technology lens. So right now, if we think about the technology landscape that advisors are using, there's three distinct segments. So you've got the AI providers. So, there's three notable companies in that list. Everyone knows who they are. You then have the middle segment, which are the CRM providers, and then you have the platforms. What advisors have been forced to do by the market is essentially buy point solutions and best-in-class point solutions across those three segments and essentially stitch them together to create a workflow. Now, a lot of these providers will go in there and say, well, we'll save you 8 hours on suitability, or we are an all-in-one system, etc. But the thing is, they always stay in their own segment. No one has gone, why don't we build an all-in-one solution? And that is one of the gaps that we see in the market. And, what we've kind of seen is instead of advisors having to sit there and stitch this technology together and being reliant on the integrations working correctly, why is there not a single integrated platform? And this is the way the market's moving. So Transact purchased Curo, which again, CRM provider, they'll aim to integrate at least a CRM with the platform. You have Quilter working with F&Z on a CRM. So you will see entrants coming into the market as well as existing players actually move across segments. So you will get all-in-one services, and advisors will hopefully get to a place where they do have an all-in-one system as opposed to stitching together 3 or 4 providers to complete a workflow.
Makes perfect sense. So in theory then, way less admin time because everything is automated through and pushed straight through. I mean, ideally, if your client can fill in their details through an online portal, potentially an AI-assisted route of doing that, so they have to type everything out manually themselves. The risk profile's done online, so by the time the advisor gets in front of them, the data has been collected. The whole time is spent, finding out about goals and ambitions and dreams and hopes and all that type of thing. And when the advice comes to going forwards, the client says, yes, I'm happy, one button push, policy's alive.
Yeah.
So you kind of cut out all those both ends.
I think, Ben, clients want to visualize that as well. Like CRM systems in the past have focused on the back office side, and the client's never really seen any of that. I think in a way they want to see their journey. They want to see this is where the end goal is, this is where the start, these are the milestones. And from that journey, I can access all of the platforms that my money is on. I can see where my investments are at, and I can actually, at a click of a button, contact my advisor and perhaps even jump on a Teams with them. And I think that's where we need to get to, that the CRM system is more client facing. So there will obviously be a back office element, but so that clients can see an end to end of this is where I am now, this is where I want to be, and this is how I'm going to reach that end goal.
Definitely, but that entire journey taking place on a single system makes it seamless, right? So instead of right now you having to stitch all of these providers together to complete that workflow, it doesn't exist in the sense of clients being able to see that journey, but also the time that these advisors are spending relying on these integrations, relying on data flowing through the systems correctly. And it's a pain point, right? You see the satisfaction reports that come out around the CRM providers, around the platforms. It's not fantastic. So the journey that you've just talked about, you can actually do that in an all-in-one solution that moves across the segments as opposed to stitching point solutions together.
Yeah, because to your point, Sharian, to have full visibility on the process, right? Historically, you had the CRM providers and you would collect all the data on your CRM. And at the end of that journey, you would have a plan. But none of the execution would be you could do through the CRM. All of that comes to the investment platform where you actually start making those investments, managing those investments, seeing the valuations and all of that. And there was this inherent disconnect between the two. So it was very challenging to show that holistic picture one, to the advisor, and two, to the client. So bringing them together and having that kind of seamless connection between the two is the only way to be able to provide what you just mentioned.
I love the idea, the Uber effect, isn't it? I think what makes Uber so successful, and people are prepared to wait longer for an Uber than they are to get a black cab or phone a taxi company up, because you can see where your taxi is on the screen moving closer to you.
Exactly.
And I think at the moment, certainly what I'm hearing from the overall profession is that there are so many delays in every stage of the process. So LOAs are taking months to come through. People who outsource power planning, it's taking months to get cases back. Everything seems to have quite a long delay around it. And I think if you almost had like the little dotted line of where you are, that would be a real easy shortcut for to keep people engaged throughout the process. I won't phone up and check because I know I'm at this stage. I can see it visually on my screen. So hopefully in business development hat, guys, you guys will have that in your system when it goes live. There you
Yeah,
go.
definitely. So just one thing to mention there, our system is live. There's two components. There's the practice management, and then there's the execution and custody modules to the platform. So practice management is already live. We've started onboarding clients. In the last quarter alone, we've onboarded 98 advice firms. So not 98 advisors, 98 full firms. So yeah, that practice management module is completely live. It's the execution and custody that's coming towards the end of the year.
Thank you, Sam. Apologies. Thank
No
you for
worries.
correcting me. Now, we have had a question come in from Ava. Ava wants to know, can firms expect to increase their client base when saving time using AI to automate tasks, or should the additional time be spent on strengthening client relationships? Are we going to have to put
Fantastic
more into client relationships to make them worth more in a kind of technological age, or can we just scale up?
That is a fantastic question. And the best way to answer this is it is not up to us to decide.
Yeah.
What we can influence is reducing the amount of time advisors are spending on admin, how the advisors choose to spend that time, whether it's, investing in sales and marketing, getting more clients, or enhancing the relationships that they have already. That is up to the advisor and up to the client bank that they have. The other piece that I wanted to mention around this point specifically is what's happened with a lot of the AI providers in the space today, and especially the CRM providers as well, is that they are charging extortionate fees. So what ends up happening there is essentially advisors are paying £400 a month or £350 a month or even £100 a month at the lowest level to get the AI technology, and then they're paying a few £100s for the CRM. By the end of the year, that bill is close to £10,000, near enough. So what ends up happening is that is resource that they're taking away from sales and marketing, or it's resource that they can place elsewhere in terms of hiring more headcount for relationship management. And essentially, with these existing technologies and these existing AI providers, what they're giving you is an old version of GPT and saying, well, actually, we built it for financial advisors. Can you give us 400 quid a month, please? And what is the advisor actually paying for here? You're paying for someone who's gone and stitched four sub processes together and an OpenAI model that was maybe 2 years out of date and gone, well, we'll take £400 a month now, please. Thank you very much. So our aim with our practice management as well, it's completely free. There's no tiers, there's no rate limits, there's no usage limits, etc. It's completely free. For us, our aim is as an all-in-one. We make money on the platform side. So essentially, to give that all-in-one service and allowing advisors to use the full benefits of AI is how we see the market going, because you have AI available everywhere. It's in your inbox, it's in your Outlook, it's in your Gmail, it's in Google. It's free across the board. You have free ChatGPT. So what are you actually paying that fee for? So if we can take resource and essentially take it from where they're spending on these AI providers and give it back to the advisors to essentially onboard new clients, increase headcount, spend more money on sales and marketing, that we think is a net benefit for not only the end client, but also for the advisors.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sam.
But if
I
we
think-
take the question also at face value, right? It could be both, right? So if you optimize and you streamline a lot of the administration, I was speaking to a client yesterday and they told us that it went from spending 4 hours to create a suitability letter down to 15 minutes. Obviously, you get that delta and then you can spend that time with other clients per se. So yeah, the reality is that, or on the flip side of it, right? So, and I forgot my train of thought there, is you can increase the touch point with your existing clients, because if at the touch of a button you can compile a report with live data that get updated automatically, you're no longer having one touch point every 12 months, but now you can have a touch point quarterly or every 6 months, because creating that touch point, you spend 15, 20 minutes on it maximum. So you can have more touch point with your clients, deepen the relationship, expand on those, or alternatively, you can use that free time to go to market, find new clients of your own.
Sorry, Ben, if you don't mind, I just want to add to what Jonathan's just said there, because it is a huge pet peeve of mine, which is essentially some of these AI providers in space, their entire marketing is we take the suitability report, and they've all targeted that, and say we take that from 8 hours to 15 minutes or 8 hours to 10 minutes. The thing that these guys miss every single time is that time saving never translates because their AI is missing context. So they don't have platform connections, they don't have market data. How can you create an annual review pack or a suitability report when you're missing the full investment side of what needs to go into that document? Fees, charges, etc. The connections aren't there. So essentially, what they've done is they've taken a meeting transcript, they've transcribed it, stored it in a data storage facility, and used their own module to create a suitability report for you where you have to adhere to their template, and the advisor and power planner is sitting there manually entering data. So that time saving never translates through. And that's purely because their AI engines are missing all of this context to actually create these documents correctly. Within Obsidian, we connect into every platform and we connect into market data. So when we generate a suitability report for you, like the example Jonathan's mentioned, it is actually taking the full context from the CRM connections to the OneDrive SharePoint connections to the platform feeds to the meeting transcripts. So you genuinely are getting that time saving.
I think it's a good point, that, and a number of firms that I know who are really trying very hard to automate using AI wherever possible haven't quite managed to meet the claim of a 15-minute suitability report. But then, I think it would only be fair to say that there are others out there like Marlu, for example, are doing some great stuff around drag and drop tech. So you just drag the stuff into a field, you can then GPT ask it questions, do whatever else. Advisory seems to be catching up there as well, advisory AI. So I think it would be remiss to say that no one can do it. I think that it's kind of a bit of an arms race now as to who's the most effective. Thank you, guys. Before I drop this one, Sherry-Ann, you're big on customer experience, client experience. To answer kind of Ava's point, I think I've kind of see this in two ways, right? So from a valuation perspective on a business, if I can service twice as many clients, that makes me twice as profitable. So that is kind of one angle to do things. But then I also think in an increasingly digital world, do we need to be more experiential to keep the value that we've got now? What's your view?
Yeah, my view is that as society, we're changing, aren't we? We want more human interaction as more technology encompasses our lives. You can't even go to the fridge now and or your dishwasher and it asks you if it wants to connect to your mobile. So we definitely want and demand a more human element. I think traditional advisors provide that. I think they love their clients, they're passionate about them, and they provide them with as many touch points as they can. I think that actually AI should be used not to service more clients, but perhaps think about your long-term goals. So if you were sat there thinking, well, I'd like to grow my business and I'd like to sell it for £5 million one day. Okay, I've got a power planner leaving. Why don't I, instead of replacing that power planner, take that cost as a whole, invest it into someone coming in and looking at my processes to see how I could streamline what I'm doing as a whole to make the advisor experience and the power planning experience more efficient. And with that, when I then onboard advisors, if I'm like a one-person advice firm, I could potentially then have the time and the processes and technology in place to easily integrate new advisors into my business. And what's then happening is when you sell your company, instead of selling it for 7 times EBITDA, perhaps as a one-person firm advisor, you're then selling a multi-advisor business with a brand for perhaps 8.5, 9 times EBITDA. And then the valuation that you're getting is going to be considerably higher than if you were going to be stuck in this environment that you might be in at the moment, where you're just one person with no AI, a team of sort of 3 part-time administrators supporting you. And I think the key thing here is that buyers have got one eye on the future as well. So actually, when they're buying firms, if they can buy a firm that's actually integrated AI and technology within to its business, that means that both the staff and the clients are technologically resilient. So when they actually take their business and they start to implement some of the changes that they need to as a whole, that means they've got a client bank that can actually come along on this journey with them. So all
Yeah.
of these things go into a melting pot. I could probably add 10, 11 more things that could go into the melting pot of how technology is going to drive valuations. And I think if you can get a grip on this now, you can actually say, well, I want to sell my business for 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, and you can start to work backwards on what you need to do in the next 2 to 5 years to be able to achieve that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd always advocate starting at the end and working backwards, because it's much easier to think, where do I need to get to? What's the end point? And then what would need to be true for that to happen in 5 years? What would need to be true in 3 years for me to be on track for the 5 years, 1 year? And you can kind of start really thinking with the end in mind, rather than just thinking, well, how do I get 5% better? You know, like where are we kind of aiming and targeting at?
That's it, Ben. I think everyone's fixating, aren't they, on making their suitability reports quicker, or not having to write, fact finds because they're recording, their meetings. I sat down with a husband and wife team literally this week, and they said to me their objective is they'd like to sell for 5 million. They're 55. They'd like to retire by the time they're 60. I drew up 3 scenarios for them. One where they sell now and they have uplift within the deal, and perhaps have a firm that can put acquisitions into their hub. Another scenario where they wait and they bring on extra advisors, and you can work that backwards based on your objectives with someone that's kind of been there and done it, and sort of knows how it washes out through to the other side.
Absolutely. I think data hygiene, right, is a huge point, which probably not spoken enough. We were talking about AI to draft suitability reports and all of that, but AI can also be used to keep your data structured, up to date, and without any gaps. And I think that's going to be immensely useful when it's going to come to thinking about selling your business, or just have an overview of where you stand.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jonathan. And I think one thing that a lot of firms miss as well is that if you're integrating AI into the business, you've got the ability to actually allow that to do research on your clients and the type of needs and wants and desires that they have. And from that research, you can then start to better hone your business and your brand and what you're offering to clients. And I think that's hugely missed. And I look at what we've done even in the last year, Ben, at Melo with, we've used AI to build a valuation calculator. We've used AI to build a new exit readiness assessment tool. And this has not only enhanced the experience for our clients and meant that we can, add more value to their exit journey, but it also means that we're more efficient as a business and we don't have to hire as many staff. So the data, I think, is the actually, Jonathan, one of the things that people really are not concentrating enough on.
Yeah.
I see that as well. Most people who I've talked to who are adopting AI, it is note takers, it's suit report generators.
It's flashy, right? At the end of the day, no one wants to talk about data because it's not sexy, right? You want to talk about your suitability reports, and that's the reality of it. So no one puts it forward, but the value hugely lies around, because when it's going to come down to selling your business, which a lot of IFAs are business owners, and that's going to be their end goal, your data hygiene is going to be what's going to make you achieve those goals, rather than you having a spanky suitability report.
There's nothing worse, is there, Sherry, than kind of talking to a buyer, or the seller, kind of buyer conversations going, and then the seller says, oh yeah, I've got X amount of AUM and I've got this many households, and then when you get into due diligence, they haven't. They're the wrong numbers. They haven't got it, and it's generally because the data's not correct behind the scenes. So they've pushed the report button, it said a number, and that's what they've used, but they haven't worked out the duplicates or the entries that haven't been keyed correctly, all that stuff.
No, and I think if you're sort of looking at, like, you might have had some direct approaches, and you might have had an offer, and the offer looks really good from a buyer, and in the offer there's a stream of assumptions. You sign your heads of terms, which means you're stuck in a period where you can't talk to anyone else, and you go through due diligence, and all of a sudden the assumptions the assumptions come out, and then you've gone from a 1.5 million offer down to 1 million because your data wasn't accurate enough and it didn't meet the assumptions, and that's a really difficult, horrible position for not just the seller to be in, but the buyer, because no buyer wants to make an offer and have to knock money off right before completion. So,
And everyone's put time into it by that point, haven't they? But both sides have put time and effort in, so it's not a good outcome for either party. Much better up front if everyone's clear on as to how it operates.
Yeah, it's also the speed at which you can complete transactions, right? So you may have a time frame that you're working towards, but if the data is unstructured and a mess, you are going to have to devote time, resources, and probably incur costs to have consultants come and clean it up in a place that gets you ready for a sale, and that increases the time frames of these transactions for both buyers and sellers.
I think a phrase here that Vicky uses quite frequently is apt. Deals are like concrete. The longer they go on, the harder they are to going to get done, the more they set. So you want to try and get things running as smooth and easy as possible. But while we're talking about data, guys, data security is a topic that I think it's well worth touching on, because I think in the olden days, kind of back 10, 15, 20 years, no one really cared where their data was, or it wasn't such a big thing. It was more about locks on filing cabinets than it was on, which country houses your data. And then we had a big push to make sure that all of your data is held within the European Economic Area, and it can't be held outside the area. And that's kind of where most people have stuck now. It's like, where's your server? Is it in the UK? Good, that's it, done. But when we were talking before this, you guys had a really important point around who else is accessing that data and where do they hold what they're accessing.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal point, to be honest, and it is something that's overlooked a lot of the time. So when you think about data, you'll get a policy of some sort with whichever provider you sign on with. And in there, of course, GDPR compliant, your data will be held within X server located within Europe somewhere. Now, what people ignore are the sub-processors. So essentially, the piece that I was telling you about before around stitching sub-processors together to provide a solution and then charging X amount of cash for it, this is the bit that gets overlooked a lot of the time. So if we think about the AI landscape specifically with the providers that are in the space today, let's start with meeting transcription. The transcription process has 3 sub-processors typically that these guys are using. One is recall, and again, this is available. So you can actually go through their sub-processor list. 2 of the 3 providers I mentioned actually don't publish their sub-processors, which we think is a bit of a disservice to the market, but again, it's their discretion. One of them does, and of course, ours is publicly available on our website as well. But recall is the meeting recordings API. So that is actually what's doing the recording. Hence why you see a bot that appears within your meeting when you're transcribing this. Now, that is a San Francisco-based company with no data centers in the UK. That data is held in the US. That is a sub-processor. Now, it's all well and good to read a policy from the provider that you signed on with, and they say, we are storing data here, but your data is also going to the company that's actually doing the commutation, the processing on the backside. The next part of that is Assembly AI. That is another San Francisco-based company without a UK data center. They are doing the speech to text. So now there's 2 providers out there that have access to the same data. One has access to the video recording, the other one has access to the transcript. Then the third thing are the underlying model providers. So all 3 of these providers use OpenAI's models. Now, if we go through, and we've had our head of compliance check the data retention policies on this, OpenAI's data retention policy is 0 data retention on the chats. Fantastic. What it doesn't include are the documentations. And the documents are more valuable because that is a suitability report, that is an annual review pack, that is any document that you're throwing into these systems. There isn't a 0 data retention policy on documents. OpenAI is actually allowed to have access, and they can train their models on whatever's inside the documents. So these are bits that are overlooked, and the reason for this, and this comes entirely down to team. Gen 1 businesses and Gen 2 businesses. The Gen 1 businesses are built for fast, to get a product out there as fast as possible. Fast growth, let's build a team. The team is there to ship a product and we'll get it to market. Then you have the Gen 2 entrants into the market. Their entire team is structured around data security, enterprise. How do we make this solution scalable? And I think that's where we really set ourselves apart. But it's also one of the most overlooked areas of the industry where people haven't considered and actually gone through the documentation that's provided, gone through the sub-processors list, and understood how data actually flows out of the UK because you have stitched a few providers together to provide a service.
No, that is fascinating, and I think what I'm keen to do is not scaremonger everyone to say don't use any provider.
Yeah.
It's all kind
Of
of
course.
terrible. And I'm fully aware that you guys have a wonderful shiny solution. But for anybody who is looking at this, what practically can they do? Because
Yeah,
they can't
Yeah,
like go visit the offices and check
yeah,
where they are and peer
100%.
under the desk to see if anything's stored there. What are
I
the
think
practical steps someone can do?
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I was gonna touch on. So a word of advice if you have it for the audience here. There's a couple of things you can do. One is checking the company itself, the vendor that you're working with, their privacy policy, their terms and condition, making sure that everything is above board there. Because at the end of the day, they're going to be your main data processor.
Yeah.
That's the first step. The second step, and not to be overlooked, are the sub-processors because they are also getting access to your data. So making sure that they themselves have the right policy in places and that you're comfortable with those. And then the third part, right, is that it's all well and good to say that you are doing it, but it needs to be audited by a third party. And that's where you have certificates that are very well known to this industry. And the ones that you really have to look out for are SOC 2, ISO 27001, and GDPR. Broadly, if a provider has one, two, ideally the three of them, it should give you the reassurance that they have been audited by a third party and that their system resilience, their data security has been inspected. And then you get other things also. You have penetration testing to make sure that the system is not hackable and stuff like that. But broadly, check your vendor, check the sub-processors, make sure that they've been audited by a third party, and then you should be.
And also ask questions.
Yeah.
So if there's something in the policy documents that you don't understand or you just want more information, you have the right to ask any of the providers, hey, what does this thing do? Just explain it to me in simple terms. Why are you using the service? Is my data actually going elsewhere? Or ask what the protocols are behind the specific provider. So ask questions as well as the bits that Jonathan's highlighted.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. So those quality marks that we're looking at, those external audit marks we're looking for are SOC 2, ISO 27001, and GDPR.
Yeah.
Correct.
Perfect. That in itself, practical takeaway, brilliant for anyone that's watching. If you have got any questions, don't forget, stick them down in the Q&A and I will make sure I pose them to the panel as we go through. Just switching tack a little bit, Sherry-Ann, I'd like to come to you. We're talking a lot, or we've talked a lot about AI and efficiency of operations. I'd like to extend that a little bit into the client experience side of things. And I don't know whether you've come across some of the work that Oxford Risk are doing around the kind of different personas and different communications for different personas, which AI is kind of now meaning you can do in real time. So as before, somebody would have to kind of copyright all these different ways of speaking. You can almost now, here's a core message, here are the 5 personas of our clients who likes to receive data in different ways, turn that into those messages. Do you think we'll see more of that, or is there a danger it becomes kind of AI slop and people stop reading?
Yeah, I think content's a really an interesting point. I think that the more that we get AI to write content, which that would be doing, because you'd have your piece of content and you take and you adapt it for these 5 personas, the less human element there is to that work. And I think consumers are becoming really savvy, like seeing that. So I think we have to be really careful. Personally, if I was running a financial advice business still, I wouldn't be doing that. I would be focusing on making sure that the content that I delivered had the right message, that I had a right client segment in place. A lot of traditional advisors tend to advise anyone and everyone. We're starting to move away from that now. You're either going to advise lower net worth clients and more of them, or you're going to advise less higher net worth clients, and you're going to have different segments with professions, etc. Make sure your marketing is suitable for that segment and focus less on trying to put a amount of volume of content out to different people.
It's also very evident when you have AI generated content. People know the identifiers now, M dashes, Claude generated slides, etc. And what ends up happening is a lot of the time people switch off because they're like, I know this is generated by GPT or Claude, etc. And they don't actually focus on the content. They more focus on the fact that someone has used AI to generate this, and that is a bit of a turn off.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
a
think
good point. It's a good point. I think that the thing that I think there's an issue with client segmentation that we have across the vast majority of financial planning firms currently. Clients tend to be segmented by wealth or by life stage. So are they accumulators? Are they kind of crossing over or decumulators? And I think, certainly from a communication perspective, if I'm somebody that's incredibly nervous about the marketplace, I will want reassurance from communications. If I'm someone that's like mad gung ho, I will want to be calmed down from doing something rash when things happen.
yeah.
That's not a typical segment of a client bank at the moment. It's kind of high net worth, low net worth, medium net worth, accumulators, decumulators. Do you not think there's more value in having a communication which I find relevant come at the right time, and it's written by AI, than actually me having to wait for something that's more generic that's written by a person?
Yeah. I think to your point, and I completely agree, and we had spoken about this in the past, there shouldn't be a one size fits all, and how we're categorizing clients today is limiting because that's the tools didn't allow you to go kind of a step deeper. But now adapting your communication, because now information accessibility is abundant, right? You can access a lot of information very, very quickly. The thing is, should certain clients be exposed to that information? So a typical example, right? And we go through huge amounts of market volatility at the minute, right? And you have some clients and some people, and that's just how they were born. They have, let's say, stronger nerves, and they can navigate a lot of that volatility. Others, on the conversely, would get very panicked about it, and would get very panicked about their savings, about their retirements and whatnot, and would be pushed to making irrational decisions. Now, is that the role of the advisor to kind of shield them to some extent to what is happening? They have hired a financial advisor to take care of that for them, to alleviate that mental stress. So why not use our understanding of the client, which now can be made more evident, our ability to tailor the communication to them to have those better match. And I think that's something that we were talking about this with Sherian. It was a huge topic of the Planex conference, which we attended last week. That emotional intelligence, right? Shifting on how you're communicating, adapting yourself to the client rather than what's more convenient or one size fits all.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jonathan. I think it's about each individual person and building what that person needs. And that's why I think we need to be very careful that AI doesn't make us advise lots more clients, because then we're going to be in a position where we can't actually provide clients with that human element that they need.
I think this is a great time to bring in, and I've written it down verbatim because I absolutely loved it, Jonathan. One of the quotes that from yourself, which was, "Social skills are becoming more valuable because they're becoming more scarce." And you know what? I see that all the time. And in fact, that we do quite a lot of soft skills training at Melo now. We find that younger advisors who are just coming through have never had any kind of soft skills training. They're very technically competent, sometimes socially awkward. They very quickly default into technical conversations because that's where their happy place is, rather than kind of saying, where are you feeling pain right now? They wouldn't say that because they don't know how to deal with the processor responses. Do you think AI will take some of the technical requirements away, and therefore we've got more time to focus on that soft skill building? We still need to make sure the outputs from AI are correct, so we need someone that is technically kind of competent to do that. But I think one of you mentioned it earlier on. Does the advisor become more coach, guide, mentor, rather than kind of cold hard facts? What's everyone's view?
I think that's already happening, isn't it? It's we're definitely becoming almost financial well-being coaches, essentially helping people around difficult situations with their money. When I look back at my time of running my own business, an advisor would go into a meeting, and one minute they would be a friend, the next a coach, the next, quasi counselor. You'd be going to the funerals, the weddings, the christenings. You're an integral part of that family's life. And you're an integral part of business clients' lives and their businesses as well. So I think one of the reasons why young people struggle with that today is because often some of their upbringing within financial services has been on the power planning side. And actually, they haven't had enough client interaction with clients via advisors. And I think that's something that really needs to be built into training programs, and making sure that power planners are doing meet and greets, they're sat in meetings, that you're affording the time for that power planner to sit in a meeting instead of write a letter. And that's difficult to do when you're busy. But these are the sorts of things that build up that emotional intelligence and allow them to watch the other advisors doing that with the clients.
Yeah, I
Can I
completely agree.
throw
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam, can I just throw something, a very unpopular opinion into the mix? So when I joined the profession 20-something years ago, I had zero experience in power planning. I had zero experience in IFA. I came in through bank assurance, and because I was good at chatting to people, I got taught the rest of it. And you know what? It all worked out really well, and career and all the rest of it from that. And I see time and time again now that job adverts are going out for trainee advisors or new advisors must have 5 years power planning experience. I guarantee you, if you find somebody who is great at talking to people, they love human interaction, they buzz off, having maybe not sales, maybe it's consultative problem solving, it's emotional stuff, they're probably not the type of person that is excited about spending 5 years writing reports. So my personal challenge to the industry is trainee advisors don't need to be power planners. You can teach technical, find the person who's good at having conversations. That's much harder to teach.
Yeah, that is
Sermon
true,
over.
but it's hard when you're running a small business. If you're taking on a trainee advisor and you're paying them a salary of 45, 50 grand, you kind of need them to do some power planning for you at the same time, because you can't afford to have a power planner and a trainee advisor. So I think in a way, for small businesses, they have to find a way to spend a lot more time with people and to give them a lot more support and training. One of my friends, Emma Bordwell, is an ex-therapist, and she runs a business where she goes into IFA firms and just does emotional intelligence training with their staff. You should be investing in that if you've gotten a trainee advisor.
But I think that's the piece that the AI enhancements can assist you with, because it takes away a lot of the admin that needs to be done. So all the pieces that we've kind of talked about. So that does give the advisors more time to spend on training and emotional support and all the kind of emotional bits. So we know AI is not very good at that stuff. It's very good at data collection and doing all the kind of logical pieces and gathering all the information that you need. But that's where advisors can use AI for that. And then, of course, it gives them more time to spend on training and the emotional support aspects.
But yeah, Ben, to your point, I think a lot of soft skills can be taught, and I think they should be taught, right? At the end of the day, you should know how to listen, and you should know how to ask questions. You shouldn't be going on monologues that we're kind of doing now. But that's the thing. You should be listening actively and asking the right questions. Those are skills that can be taught, like hard skills in themselves. So you can have both sides, right? If you come in through the gates with very strong technical skills, learn the soft skills, and vice versa. So I think both have a place.
Yeah, not disputing that whatsoever. We do a personality, what's called an organometric called GC index, which is designed to kind of work out where your happy place is. So what type of stuff you get a buzz from, and what type of stuff you can do, but actually it's hard work and it feels like it's been a hard day's graft doing it. And I think it's more about where are people going to enjoy most from their job. And some people will enjoy talking to people, others will enjoy doing data and writing reports. And I think sometimes whilst you can teach you can teach all the skills, try and think about what the most common things of that particular job, and then find someone that loves those common things, rather than trying to, I suppose, teach a square peg to be round.
But now we're also in the reality where you can love doing certain things. AI will be actively replacing them, right? And at the end of the day, you need to be able to pivot as a professional. And that's just a sad reality, right? Some jobs have been made irrelevant in the past, and some jobs will be made irrelevant also in the future. So focus on what differentiates you as a human that a machine will have a much harder time doing. Maybe it's going to involve taking more work, but as a professional, sometimes those are the sacrifice that needs to be done.
Thanks, Jonathan. We've had another question come through, I think piggybacking off my point around having 5 years power planning experience for a trainee advisor role is unrealistic. Without going through the full question, there's a really good point to pull out there. Now, Ava says that power planning jobs are being reduced due to AI solutions. I've not seen that yet. Everyone talks about that it's going to happen, and I'm yet to see it happening. I go to lots of different conferences at all different levels throughout the value chain, and at the moment what I'm seeing is the number of power planners are the same, but they're becoming more efficient in how they operate because of technology. I'm not seeing any kind of drop in power planner numbers yet. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I think what's happening is that there might be some natural, there might be some people that leave and they don't get replaced. But I have not spoken to one firm where that has been the case. And what they're doing instead is, if there's efficiencies that they're finding, they're spending more time with their power planners, training them, or they're allowing them to do more client-facing work, or they are just on the hunt to grow their business and do more and service more clients. So I really don't think that that will play out in the way that everyone is kind of saying it will.
I think also we're in this pretty unique industry where there's no shortage of demand for advice, and I think that's only going to increase. So you could be in a position where, yeah, just I don't see the supply, which in this case would be the power planners and the advisors alike, will be displaced, right? Because there is an increasing demand for people needing advice. The threshold of clients benefiting from advice is only increasing because there's a layer of obviously a fixed cost and a lot of regulation that goes with it. But it's quite unique in that way, which I don't think it's going to get displaced in the traditional terms.
Yeah, and on our side, we have access to the underlying data as well. So we're not seeing power planners getting offboarded because a firm has gone in there and said, well, we're going to replace our power planners with AI. We're not seeing power planners being offboarded. What we're seeing is they're actually the biggest users because they're using it so frequently and on a daily basis. It's upskilling them as opposed to them just being removed completely from the firm.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could possibly change, Ben, is that you might not need to have the level of technical capability and competence as perhaps a power planner might have once needed, because you can put more controls in place and there's more support from an AI point of view to tell a power planner what they should be doing in terms of templating. So you could find that actually there might be less diploma qualified power planners, or they might do slightly less modules within their diploma.
Thanks, Sherry-Ann. Now, I'm really conscious of time. We've only got kind of 5 minutes left, and there are a couple of things that I still wanted to make sure we touched on. So firstly, the question that I have been asked a lot over the last couple of months is, what is the impact of AI going to have on business valuations, Sherry-Ann?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think we've already touched upon this, but I think that I don't think anyone can really know what the impact is going to be. And I think one of the problems that we've got is that how the charging model within financial services is going to change over the course of the next sort of 5 years. I think that we're coming into a time where there's going to be more older people who are perhaps living longer in retirement and more decumulation clients, and yet the whole profession is geared around charging for accumulation clients. So there's definitely a lot more fixed fee based models within businesses, and buyers are very keen to take them on, which is very interesting for me, because it makes me wonder whether buyers think that actually the future could be that we go down more of a fixed fee model in the future. But I don't think anyone can sit there and say AI is going to affect the industry in this way, and that's therefore going to affect the valuations. What I do know now is that now is a very good time to sell your business, and you've got two options. You either get on board and use AI as an opportunity and generate a better business than what you've got now, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. Or you look at it and you go, I can't be bothered to do that, and it's not something that I'm going to enjoy. So therefore, I might as well look at getting out now and enjoying the rest of my advice years, the 3 or 4 years that I have left, actually working within a business that has bought me.
100%. I think what we're going to see is dispersion, because the benchmark will shift of a good AI-enabled business, and that will really stand out versus a business that doesn't use any forms of technology. So I think the dispersion evaluation that will increase because just the benchmark is going to shift upwards. And that's just going to be a reality. And I think it's going to become a lot more evident as a lot more businesses adopt these tools and become more efficient.
As Sherry-Ann said, Vicky and I get asked this all the time. Our business valuation is going to go up or down, and I think they're going to split. As Jonathan said,
exactly.
there'll be like a new benchmark for what good looks like, and that will be a technology-enabled firm that does an amazing job efficiently. And I think for those who aren't prepared to go there, now may be quite a good time to look at potentially an exit strategy, I would think. And last question for me in the dying seconds of this is to Sam and Jonathan. Something that's playing on my mind is as AI becomes more prolific, everybody uses it, it's like the norm now. I think we might be being lulled into a false sense of how cheap it is to have AI. And I don't know what the commercial model is going to be sustainably going forwards, because all these data centers, they're technically replacing every 5 years, and it's not geared up like that. Do you think we're getting lulled into using it for everything, but then actually the costs are going to suddenly go through the roof?
That is a fantastic question. I think my answer to this is more around the scalability of the architecture of your system. So if the system is built in the correct manner, then there are ways to optimize around the cost. So the engineering practices become more impactful. So have you built the system in the right way? Do you have so many sub-processes that you have to stitch together because you have to pay everyone along the chain? So if you keep reducing the number of providers in the chain to deliver your service, the cost will not scale as people expect it to. But again, if your process is reliant on a load of sub-processes, then yeah, you've got to float the bill for everyone.
Yeah. And I think that
Okay.
now what's quite common, and I've been reading about this a bit, is that major firms now are employing a bit middleman between the AI users and the AI models to be able to filter through what would require an AI model, and if it would require an LLM, which one would it require? You don't need a Fable model to draft an email or to correct the grammar of your email. You might need Fable to, and for those who don't know, Fable is the newest Anthropic model. And that's the thing, having the infrastructure that would allow you to interchange the model, very important, but also having, and that's where we're going to see a lot more, being actually able to recognize what would require varying models, which have obviously different computing costs.
Yeah, thank you very much, all. I really appreciate that. Well, unfortunately, that is it. We have come to the end of our time together. Thank you, Sherry-Ann, Jonathan, and Sam. I found that absolutely fascinating, and I'm hoping our audience did as well. Couple of, I suppose, key takeaways from me that I've written down throughout we've been chatting. The importance of understanding the data security, not just where the data is held at the top level, but actually looking for those certifications for the sub-processors, which were SOC 2, ISO 27001, and GDPR. The value of EQ over technical knowledge, I think, is going to increase going forwards. Quick plug, if your guys need a tune-up, then please do get in touch. We do run soft skills training at Melo. I think personalization could be interesting, but be careful about how you use it and not to lose the human touch. If you're willing to adopt AI, the future looks exciting and bright. If you're not, now could be quite a good time to think about an exit. And who knows, as the cost of AI changes, we may find AI taking all the complicated tasks and the real simple ones coming back down to people like you or I. Thank you for listening. If you want to go back over any of the topics we discussed, we will share the recording after this session via email. And please do feel free to share it with anyone who you think would find it useful. And if you want to talk about your firm specifically, get in touch. We're more than happy to have a chat about your business and how we can particularly help. So again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next Melo event. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.